Justice, gun rights, vigilantism, and the BLM Summer of Love. Let's take it back to 2020 and the night that brought all of those things and one young man to the forefront. This is the Kyle Rittenhouse Uncensored special, and the show starts now. Despite everything the Fed has been trying, we are still feeling the effects of inflation. Filling up your car, grocery shopping, home repairs, everything is more expensive, and most of you are paying these bills with a credit card. Credit card debt is at an all-time high. If you're a homeowner, there is a way out. You need to call my friends at American Financing. They can put together a plan to pay off that high-interest credit card debt and create meaningful savings for you every month. They are saving people just like you an average of $854 a month and closing in as fast as 10 days. So don't wait. Get yourself into a better position. Call their salary-based mortgage consultants today. It costs nothing to get started. And if you start today, you could delay 2 mortgage payments, giving you greater savings up front. American Financing can help get that monkey off your back. 866-890-8585. That's 866-890-8585, or visit AmericanFinancing.net. So let's take it back to August 25th, 2020, in the tail end of what some networks referred to as the mostly peaceful BLM Summer of Love. It was so peaceful that our nation sustained billions in damage as cities were burned and looted in the name of justice for George Floyd. In this case, it was Kenosha, Wisconsin, where those mostly peaceful BLM social justice warriors were rioting, looting, and destroying with reckless abandon and zero consideration for the lives, businesses, and property they were destroying. It was a perverted quest for justice for Jacob Blake, who was left paralyzed after being shot by police as he resisted arrest while brandishing a knife. In the midst of that chaos was then 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, who traveled to Kenosha from Illinois to serve as a medic and help defend private property. Well, that all spiraled out of control when he was chased by savage BLM protesters who he said intended to kill him. And they likely would have if not for Kyle being armed with an AR-15 style rifle he used to shoot and kill Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber, and he injured Gage Grosskreutz. And that is where the mass controversy exploded. Was it self-defense? Vigilantism gone wrong? Well, Kyle Rittenhouse had his day in court, and when his trial came to a close, he was acquitted of all charges. But the acquittal wasn't the end of the Rittenhouse controversy, actually far from it. His life was and is forever changed, and since that night in Kenosha and that trial, Kyle has stepped back into the spotlight speaking on college campuses. He was recently run out of the University of Memphis by a mob of green hairs. Welcome to the club. But Kyle isn't done speaking up and speaking out, and he joins me now. Kyle, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I've got a lot of questions for you, but I want to start off with some more recent events, and that's your college campus tours, speaking out on college campuses, obviously not warmly received and welcomed by all the students and all the activists on those campuses. But you got to tell me, after everything that's happened to you, after your life has been completely upended, what made you want to step back into the spotlight, back into the controversy, and subject yourself to a lot of hate and a lot of pushback just by your mere presence?
Well, thank you for having me. And the reason I've decided to go ahead and take a stand in a way and be an advocate right now is because I see the current attack our Second Amendment is under. The current administration pushing red flag laws, a assault weapons ban, and the better bipartisan Better Safety Community Act that they just passed. It's just ridiculous. And I want to speak out against that and hopefully see change to where we have a society where our constitutional rights are not infringed upon.
Why do you think that these campus activists and really liberals across the spectrum, why do you think that they seemingly hate you so much?
I honestly believe that a lot of these liberals have no idea what's going on. They're brain fed and they're drinking the Kool-Aid of what's being told to them, and they just want to go out there and protest. Most of them don't even know what happened to me. They just automatically assume things about me that are false, and they want to wreak havoc and cause a disturbance or a scene.
Yeah, I think that's obviously true. I mean, your name, obviously, ever since 2020, has carried a lot of weight. People who stand beside you and people, obviously, who don't like you, dislike you, have never met you, but just the thought of you and your name coming up, it causes a derangement in them. Is similar to how they feel about Donald Trump. But, I want to ask you, do you feel like, obviously, your name carries a lot of public attention? Do you feel like in some ways you are kind of a celebrity because of everything that you went through and everything that happened to you, especially during that high intensity time of 2020, 2021?
I hate that word celebrity so much. But in a way, there has been a lot of notoriety that has come with the incident that has happened. And I've used that notoriety to help advocate for the Second Amendment. I currently work for Texas gun rights, where I advocate for the Second Amendment behind the scenes and also on the front lines.
What do you say to people on the left and the right that say, I stand up for Kyle Rittenhouse. I believe he's innocent. I believe that he acted justly that night in the summer of 2020. But I just don't know if he's the right person to be standing up for gun rights, at least publicly. What do you say to those people?
We all have a First Amendment right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But do you think that
Um,
some of the criticism that you've received from the left and the right, do you agree with any of it? Do you push back on any of it? Can you see where people are coming from? What's your response?
Absolutely. I understand where people are coming from. I'm 21 years old. They assume I'm too young to know anything about the Second Amendment, but in reality, I was thrust into a situation where I had to grow up really fast and study the Second Amendment, learn about the Constitution, and sort of figure out life in a very short time.
Do you think if what happened to you in 2020, do you think if it happened today as we sit in 2024, do you think that your trial would have gone differently? We know that even since then, the justice system has changed dramatically. I mean, look no further than the 4 indictments for former President Donald Trump. Do you think that you would be given the same trial today as you had back then?
Honestly, I have no idea. I was acquitted November 19th, 2021. Joe Biden was currently in office, and I was given a fair trial, and the jury looked at the facts. I think if we were able to go into trial and be able to have the same judge and the same jury, it probably would have been a lot smoother because it was a very heated time during my trial because it was a little over a year since everything burned down and people were still scared.
Yeah, people are still scared. I imagine that it's got to be frustrating for you to look back on 2020. I mean, a lot of horrible things happened in 2020. To me, one of the darkest times in our nation's history for a lot of different reasons, not only the BLM Summer of Love, but also the COVID pandemic and the response to that. But, as you look back on that time and the way that the media and the left has really been able to sanitize and whitewash everything that BLM did to our country, how angry does that make you now that it seems like everything that they did has largely been excused or forgotten, but your name still carries so much infamy?
Well, I think there's a double standard. I think if I was a Democrat and the roles were reversed, I probably would never have been charged. And they used me as a political pawn. So it kind of ticked me off to see how they used a 17-year-old kid at the time for their own narrative, all the way to the current president, Joe Biden, using my face in a campaign ad, calling me a white supremacist. I don't think the media or politicians should be allowed to do that. I don't think the media should be able to defame somebody and get away with it and be protected by certain laws that are in place.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously seems very convenient that your name is routinely brought up at the time. You were under age 18. And, we had a recent incident in Kansas City when there was some thugs that shot up the Super Bowl victory parade. And a lot of the media, when we didn't know what was happening, they said, oh, we don't want to identify who it was because they were a minor. They really go to great lengths to keep people's identities, their motivations, everything under lock and key, not also far from what happened here in Nashville with the trans shooter at our Covenant school. But, when it
We
comes...
still haven't gotten the entire book.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, what do you think about that? And speaking of double standards, what do you think about that? That they had no problem splashing your face across everything, calling you horrible names, calling you a white supremacist, but there are others that they seem to really coddle and protect because maybe it's not as attractive for the narrative.
Well, first off, in Nashville, the officers did a phenomenal job stopping the threat quickly and doing exactly what they were trained to do. Second of all, I just love how the media pushes it under the rug like it never happened. And we only saw like 3 pages of the manifesto, and I'm curious where the rest of it is. We have a right to know. That was an adult who went and caused harm to a bunch of children and teachers.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Nashville community obviously is still wondering what exactly happened, wondering if the motivations are ever going to be exposed. I would guess probably not, because the shooter in that situation did not fit the preferred narrative. But, after everything happened, I know there was a lot of media headlines that came out about you wanting to just go to college, resume your life. You didn't really want to be in the spotlight. You just wanted to be a normal 18-year-old kid, move on with your life at that time. But they really didn't let you move on with your life. Can you take me back to that time and what was going through your mind and how I know you grew up very quickly, but how you confronted all this infamy and what made you decide to re-enter, I guess, the national conversation after all that happened to you?
Well, I was thrust into a situation to where at the time I could not get a job. I had to rely on going out and speaking and doing media and a bunch of other things. And the media did that. They did it to where I couldn't go and live a normal life. And now they still do it to where I can't get a normal job. I, I work in politics and at Texas gun rights, and there's no way I could possibly go and work for some corporate office because they'll be too scared to have my name tied to them.
When you're in public, do you get recognized on the street?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I get recognized all the time. It's a little difficult to go out, and I try to go grocery shopping at night now. But there are a lot of times where I get recognized. I had one lady the other day who was at the gas station just randomly start flicking me off and trying to follow me home. So there's weirdos like that out there that I have to watch out for. And a lot of these people who dislike me don't even know what happened. They're just told Kyle's bad, don't like him.
Yeah. And I want to go back into that too. But, I think that's really an interesting conversation to have. And when it comes to your personal safety, even now, I mean, you are recognizable. Your name is certainly recognizable. Having to go grocery shopping at night, having to be constantly watching your back. You've got a lady that's flipping you off who probably, who knows what she would do. But I'm sure that there are other people that you're actually legitimately concerned for your personal safety, even now, even after everything that's happened to you. How do you confront that situation? How does your family deal with that? That cannot be easy.
Well, I trust in God. I know whatever happens, it's going to be His plan. I have a great group of guys that help out with my security whenever I travel, and that's how I handle it. The threats are pretty insane. I posted on X a couple weeks ago just a glimpse at some of the threats, and there's people threatening to rape me. There's people threatening to murder me. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and a lot of these people, like you said, have no idea, what actually happened. And they don't, quite frankly, care. I don't think a lot of people really care about what happened in the summer of 2020 and really getting to the truth of a lot of different things that happened. But, just in terms of how people treat you and how people respond to you, I mentioned your family, but how does your family deal with it? How does, the rest of the Rittenhouse clan, how do they deal with that last name now having, feelings about it one way or another, really for the entire world's sake?
I'm sure it's really hard on them. They're living in an undisclosed location because there were people harassing them, and it's crazy. It's one thing for people to come out and attack me and harass me, but it's another thing for people to come out and harass people that have nothing to do with the situation. And it's just frustrating.
I don't know what your current relationship status is, and forgive me if this is too personal, but I have to ask, what's trying to date like for you? Being, obviously a public figure, and your name is in the spotlight. I imagine that is also not easy.
No, well, I'm not dating anybody. Dating life is very difficult, as you can imagine.
I have to ask because I'm curious. Take me into that a little bit. Give me some more information if you're comfortable, because I think my audience would be really interested in that.
Well, I'm not really worried about dating right now. I'm just worried about getting over these civil lawsuits and growing in my career.
Well, you're 21 years old. You're a young man. You've got to be thinking about your future. I mean, I would assume at some point you want to be in a relationship, you want to get married, you want to have a family. What does that even look like for you? How do you even go about that? Because I can't imagine what it's like for you to try to meet people. I know, back in my day, it was hard enough for me, and I really don't have nearly the controversy that you've had to deal with.
Yeah, well, I'm not really focused on dating right now. I'm not paying attention to that. I'm just looking to grow my career in the next couple of years, and then I can focus on that later.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's fair enough. I won't press you anymore on that. I have a feeling that Kyle Rittenhouse as the next Bachelor probably isn't going to come to fruition anytime soon. But boy, that would be interesting. I want to talk about, what actually happened in the summer of 2020 and what the media to this day is still purposely getting wrong about that night and what happened to you. I know you've probably covered this a lot, but for my audience, they want to hear it from you. What is everybody still getting wrong, whether willfully or otherwise?
Well, one of the biggest misconceptions that people have is that I shot Black people, and none of the people who attacked me and that I shot were Black. And that's just the truth. And people think I'm a white supremacist or a vigilante, and it's frustrating. And I see all of these lies constantly. There's so many of them. And I just have learned to ignore it in a way and just not really pay attention to the news cycle.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, it's also interesting to me. We talk about, and you've been really the poster child for the left to talk about vigilantism and how, what you did was so wrong and you should have never been there and you should have never been trying to help. There's a lot of discussion about that. But in the climate that we sit even today, even though we're not in the summer of rioting and love 2020 anymore, we are still in an environment where there's a lot of crime. There's a lot of bad people out there. In New York City, it's maybe the epicenter of all of that. You've got people pushing people into subway tracks. You've got, random acts of violence, women getting punched on the streets. And then you've got people like yourself that maybe want to stand up for people, maybe want to do the right thing, and they're scared to death to do it because they don't want to be the next Kyle Rittenhouse. What do you say to those people?
Well, we all have the right to self-defense. I think everybody should own firearms and be able to protect themselves. I see all these women being violently attacked in New York and then around college campuses, and it makes me upset. It makes me sick to my stomach to think about, because the government, the colleges, the mayor, the president, they're all failing to protect these people. Because we have at these college campuses, I talk about this in my speech a lot, we have these blue boxes set up around campuses that have a call button to call the police, but that's not quick enough when some grown man who is 150 pounds, 200 pounds heavier than you is trying to kidnap you or kill you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that the fact that you're going onto these college campuses is super important. And I know that that's been, kind of a passion project for you, not only talking about gun rights, but just showing up on college campuses. I've been to a number of college campuses. They don't like me there. They've tried to run me out. And I was at University of New Mexico. I don't recommend there. And they
Was it worse than Memphis?
Well, I don't know. Was the SWAT team called for you, Kyle? I would imagine yours was pretty bad.
I think you won. Yeah. I didn't get the SWAT team.
Yeah, no, I had the SWAT team have to come to that situation. But, I'm wondering your thoughts on that and conservatives showing up on college campuses. Do you think that there are more people than the media would like to believe that actually do want to come and listen to you, that actually have an open mind about you? And what's your experience been with those people?
Absolutely. There have been people who have wanted to come and legitimately hear me talk. They may not like me. They may want to debate me, and that's fine. I enjoy that. I enjoy people coming and asking tough questions about what they disagree on and clearing things up.
Yeah, no, I think that that's super important. And I'm wondering too, are you even able to get through a speech? Or do they run you out before
Oh
you
yeah.
really even get a chance? I mean, I know the University of Memphis, they said that they ran you out. You said that that's not necessarily the case. But, how do you confront that where you can't even really deliver your message because there's so much anger and violence and protesting and rioting that can you even get out your message?
It depends. So here's how I run things. So I will speak for about 15 minutes, then do a 15-minute Q&A, and then sometimes a meet and greet. But if they don't let me speak, I'll speak for the first 2 minutes, and then I'll just do a 30-minute Q&A and say, all right, we're going to roll into a Q&A, and we'll just talk about it.
And are you even
And
able
then
to
people
take
usually,
questions?
sometimes it ends up just turning into a yelling battle between me and a raging liberal, and they end up storming out or crying.
Yeah, been there, done that. My last question for you is just looking back. Hindsight is always 2020. Interesting because it was 2020. But I'm wondering, would you change anything about what happened that night? And do you think that it was your destiny to be where you were and to have what happened to you happen to you?
Well, with hindsight being 2020 as it is, if I would have known I would have been violently and viciously attacked, put on trial for defending myself and facing life in prison, I wouldn't have gone there. I would have stayed at home, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I defended myself.
Right. No, and I think that there's a lot of people who see what's happening in our country, as I mentioned before, and they want to protect and defend themselves. They want to be able to feel confident in those situations. But unfortunately, with the way the justice system is, they might not all, get the treatment that you got and be acquitted on all those charges for just rightfully defending yourself. Kyle, I think it takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing. I think it takes a lot of courage to go to college campuses. I think we need more people that are willing to do it, despite the protests and the backlash and all the hate and vitriol that you get. So I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And I want to thank you also for being so brave and so passionate in what you do and not letting the haters deter you from your message.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Talk to you soon, Kyle. All right, folks, that does it for this special episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Please catch me tonight on Waters Primetime, live from New York City, and tomorrow on Outnumbered at noon Eastern on Fox News. Until then, from Nashville, God bless and take care.
Tomi Lahren is Fearless is presented by American Financing. American Financing has helped thousands of customers save real money and put themselves into a better financial position. Call today and see what they can do for you. 866-890-8585 or visit americanfinancing.net.